K-12. We're delighted that you're here. We've had the invitation. Again, I thank you so much for those words, sir. Very grateful to you. We have before us, I don't believe we need to call roll. That's already been established. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes for the meeting of October 10th, 2013?
So moved.
Have I a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, raise your hands. Motion carries, and the minutes are approved. We have an agenda before us today.
You were sent a corrected agenda late yesterday. We had some typos on the second page that we corrected, did not change the content, and would ask for approval of the corrected agenda.
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Second noted. Any discussion? All in favor indicate by raising your hands. Approval agenda. It has been approved. Madam, have anyone for a public hearing? Thank you, Madam. Doctor.
Item G2A is our fiscal year 2015 budget. Dr. Craig Pouncey, if you would share the remarks and our projections on our budget for next year to send across to the governor.
Thank you, Dr. Vice, members of the State Board. I wish this was a happier time. However, we have to live with our fiscal reality in the state. Our charge as a State Department and a State Board is to identify those resources that our schools need to be successful. As you know, we've worked through the month of October in doing that. Unfortunately, just the meager components of what we think will require them to be successful would far exceed what we think the available revenue will be. That total would include a $400 million increase over what was appropriated this year for K-12, and that's just not doable. So what we have pared down is a proposal that will be sent to the governor, provided the State Board approves it, that number one, protects the original four priorities that we discussed early on. That first one being the reinstatement of teachers that were lost due to the economic downturn, particularly in our 7th and 8th grade. So the proposal is asking for 438 teachers to be placed in the 7th and 8th grade. Second priority was the reinstatement of our other current expense money, which is essential for assisting school districts in simply just paying their light bill. We've asked for a reinstatement of $28 million there. Transportation, which is one of the biggest out-of-pocket expenses that particularly our rural county systems are faced with. We're asking that in this proposal to reinstate $14 million in operational monies to cover the cost of fuel, tires, maintenance, and the like, and to reinstate fleet renewal from $6,000 to what it actually cost, that being $7,800 per bus. And finally, originally I know that we talked about the need for funding textbooks at $75 per student. But again, in trying to get this request down to a $241 million increase, we've had to sacrifice textbooks somewhat, but we are asking in this proposal for an increase from $31.35 per student to $56 per student in this proposal. In general, everything else has pretty much stayed the same that it was funded at for FY14. We have asked for a $5 million increase in AMSTI, particularly in working with our priority schools and our alert schools. Their staff is really stretched thin in trying to cover the needs of the schools. We've also asked for a $5 million increase to our access program, hopefully to get an online high school program off and running this next year. And then in three other areas, we asked for a $3.5 million appropriation. We were not funded anything for this request last year to create those critical learning supports that we know particularly many of our at-risk students have to have. So, Dr. Vice, I'll offer to you the resolution, and I'll let you go over it with them, and hopefully this will improve.
Thanks, Craig. Again, as Craig said, it's the best we can do with what we have. We've made a commitment to the legislature and to the governor to send across something that's realistic, to try to meet as many needs as we can, and I feel this is the best we can at this point. Obviously, it will go to the governor. The governor will make his recommendations from there and begin it to work its way through the legislative session. I will say I'm very encouraged that we had legislators join us for that budget conversation. I think that went a long way for getting them to understand the crucial point we're at in public education. I've had some follow-up correspondence with them, so I would recommend for your approval this budget for 15.
Have I a motion to approve?
So
the budget?
moved.
And have I a second?
Second.
And a second. Discussion.
Could I ask a question, Mr. Pouncey, Dr. Pouncey? When you mention an online school, is that going to be an expansion of what we're already offering online, or will it be
That is
something?
correct.
It won't be something like K-12 Inc.
No, ma'am.
Okay.
This is utilizing the system we already have in place with our access program, but expanding the offerings and then the credit offering capability of that program.
Right.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor of this budget that we'll be sending to the governor, indicate by raising your hands. Opposed? Motion carries. Dr. Bice?
Item G2B is the appointment of a Chief State Data Privacy Officer. We discussed that at our work session as a follow-up to our adopted new policy on data privacy. That person is Scott Cruz that I introduced you to at the work session. I regret that Scott is not here today, and especially regret the reason. His sister was killed in an automobile accident yesterday in Texas, so he is there, but I do want to bring Scott's name to the table for approval for this position as we move forward.
We have a recommendation from Dr. Bice to approve the position of Chief State Data Privacy Officer, Mr. Cruz. Have a motion to that effect.
So moved.
And a second? Second. Discussion? Boy, that's hard.
Yeah.
All in favor indicate by raising your hands. Motion carries. Dr. Bice?
Item G2C is a resolution affirming Alabama control of the Alabama College and Career Ready Standards. I'd like to make a couple of comments before I read the resolution. When I presented the resolution during our October work session, I clearly stated the intent of this resolution, and that was in response to individuals that have had concern over the governance of our standards, and we want to always remain respectful of those concerns and address them when we can. So the intent of this is twofold. Number one is to allay those concerns that were expressed and at the same time affirm what the state board has said on numerous occasions, that they are the entity in control of determining what those standards are, their adoption, their revision, and their implementation. I also made the comment during the work session that we know that this current MOA is no longer binding. I asked in February of last year for our legal counsel to clarify that, which he did, and I shared it regularly in committee hearings in the legislature, but it was not accepted as a resolution to that issue, which is another reason we felt the need to bring it back and put this issue of the MOA to rest. Does it take us out of our work in terms of our college and career ready standards? Absolutely not. We are committed to pushing forward to increase the rigor and expectations for our students. We see great value in working across state lines with our fellow states to learn from one another and share best practices. So with that said, I'd like to read the resolution in its entirety so we know what we're talking about and then ask for your consideration. Whereas the Constitution of the State of Alabama grants the general supervision of public schools in Alabama to the duly elected Alabama State Board of Education, and whereas under this authority, the Alabama State Board of Education serves as the entity charged with the development and adoption of academic content standards in Alabama public schools, and whereas this constitutionally authorized board voted unanimously to approve on May 14, 2009, a resolution to enter into a memorandum of agreement with the National Governors Association and the Council of Chief State School Officers to engage with fellow states in the development of internationally benchmarked standards to be considered for voluntary adoption by participating states according to their state-specific adoption process. And whereas recent actions by the United States Department of Education to include incentivizing the adoption of said standards as part of federally funded competitive grants have generated concern about the potential for federal overreach into education governance, which is properly the purview of states. Excuse me. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Alabama State Board of Education does hereby rescind and replace the May 28, 2009 memorandum between our state and NGA and CCSSO, and be it further resolved that in its place the following internal policy affirms our commitment to the Alabama College and Career Ready Standards in English Language Arts. Number 1, Alabama's development and adoption College and Career Ready Standards in English Language Arts and Mathematics in November 2011 were achieved with the full understanding that the governance of said standards remains within Alabama as a sovereign and independent state, and that any necessary changes and revisions would be made according to state-approved processes. Number 2, in adopting the Alabama College and Career Ready Standards in English Language Arts and Mathematics, the Alabama State Board of Education reaffirmed its authority over the governance of said standards and clearly stated its opposition to any undue influence or involvement from the United States Department of Education or other outside entity. The Alabama State Board of Education fully acknowledges and reaffirms its authority and control over the adoption, revision, or repeal of all academic content standards for use in the public schools of Alabama. The Alabama State Board of Education encourages continued collaboration with fellow states in the development and implementation of shared, high-quality academic standards and best practices that assure student learning between and across states. The Alabama State Board of Education affirms the Alabama College and Career Ready Standards in English Language Arts and Mathematics as having been adopted based on the recommendation of Alabama teachers, professors, and other appointees serving on the Alabama Course of Study committees. 6, the Alabama State Board of Education maintains its independence with respect to testing and remains committed to quality and purposeful assessments aligned with the expectations of our technical schools, community colleges, and institutions of higher education, as well as business and industry, and utilize as a means to measure our students' knowledge and skills against their peers nationally and internationally. The Alabama State Board of Education maintains its position that curricula are developed at the local school system level, along with plans of instruction in the adoption of textbooks and related resource materials, including the use of technology, done this 14th day of November 2013. I'd like to ask for your consideration for adoption.
Have I a motion to adopt this resolution affirming
moved.
Alabama control of the Alabama College and Career Ready Standards? We have a motion. Have I a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion. Yes, madam.
On this proposal, why does it state in the third paragraph that it was voted on unanimously?
Based on our records, that's what
Well,
we have.
it's not based on the minutes.
Okay.
Would you like a copy of the minutes?
That'd be great. Ms. Betty Peters has brought up a correction that needs to be made to the resolution. I'd like to make this at this point, and let me read from our minutes. When we did approve working the memorandum of agreement, it was approved on a motion by Ms. Stephanie Bale and seconded by Ms. Ella Bale, and the board voted 7-1 in favor of the following, with Ms. Betty Peters opposed. So we need to change that to the constitutionally authorized body voted and strike the word unanimously to approve on May 14th.
Another thing, and I know, Ella, you're probably the only one besides me here today, well, Dr. Weiss was here, that actually was there on that, when we did the vote. I'm kind of confused about, if you read what it said then, it doesn't mention memorandum of understanding, and that seems to have a date of May the 28th. If you say what it does, it says, we hereby approve the Alabama Department of Education's participation in the developmental efforts of the NGA CCSSO in English and mathematics. It didn't say at the time